All right, today we're headed to Pärnu, Estonia's summer capital. But we're not just going for the beaches. Nope. We're going to dig into a story that's written right into the city's buildings. A story of how architecture tells a tale of survival, reinvention, and ultimately, pure relaxation.
There's a saying that just perfectly captures this place. The buildings of Pärnu are like pages in a history book. I love that. Every wall, every window, every roofline has a story to tell about the people who built it and the times they were living through. So come on, let's turn the first page and read the city's story together.
Here's how we're going to break it down. We're going to trace Pärnu's journey through four major transformations. We'll start with its origins as a tough medieval fortress, then watch its massive pivot to a seaside resort, navigate the chaos of the 20th century, and finally, see how it weaves its past and present together today. Okay, so our story starts way back in the 13th century, and you gotta forget everything you think you know about Pärnu. Forget sandy beaches and spas. This was a city built for one reason, and one reason only: survival. Early Pärnu was all about one thing: its massive stone walls. Inside, the town was this dense maze of purely functional buildings. We're talking thick walls, simple houses, and narrow streets, all designed to defend against enemies and the brutal Baltic weather. Comfort? Yeah, that was a luxury they just couldn't afford. Then, in the 16th and 17th centuries, when Sweden was in charge, Pärnu basically doubled down on being a fortress. I mean, the entire city was organized for war. They added new bastions, huge earth walls. They even redesigned the streets just to move soldiers around faster. Absolutely every single piece of the city served a defensive purpose. But empires shift, priorities change. In the 18th century, Swedish power started to fade, and the Russian Empire took over. Now, for Pärnu, this wasn't just some change of flag. It was a threat to its very reason for being. Suddenly, its mighty walls, the very thing that defined it, were obsolete. The city's survival no longer depended on being a fortress. It had to completely reinvent itself, or just fade away. So what on earth did it do? Well, this crisis sparked one of the most radical transformations you can imagine. Pärnu turned its back on war and looked toward wellness. The city of soldiers was about to become a city of sunbathers. And you can really see the complete 180 right here. The whole goal of the city flipped from survival to leisure. The materials changed from heavy stone and earth to light wood and glass. And that feeling of being strong and enclosed, that gave way to a whole new vibe of being light and open. So, what was the engine driving this huge change? Well, it was the 19th century health tourism boom. The new icon of the city wasn't a fortress wall. It was this: the Pärnu mud baths. Built in this elegant, neoclassical style, it was a symbol of pampering and luxury, a total world away from the city's grim, militaristic past. And it wasn't just the big spas. You started seeing these gorgeous wooden villas popping up everywhere. And these things were designed for pure relaxation. Think wide verandas to catch the sea breeze, big windows to let all that summer light pour in, and all these intricate wooden details added just for the sake of beauty. They really defined Pärnu's romantic character, even to this day. Now, just as Pärnu was really hitting its stride as this amazing resort town, the 20th century showed up and put the city on an absolute architectural roller coaster. You had this incredible period of optimism during Estonia's first independence, followed by the trauma of war and decades of Soviet occupation. So during that first period of independence in the 20s and 30s, Estonia really embraced modernism. And in architecture, that meant a style called functionalism. The whole idea was to strip away all the unnecessary decoration and just focus on what works. So you get these buildings with clean lines, simple shapes, and a really strong connection to nature, which, let's be honest, was perfect for a resort like Pärnu. And if you want to see the masterpiece of this era, look no further than the Pärnu Beach building. Just look at it. It's so light, it's open, it looks like a sleek white ship that just docked right on the sand. It perfectly captures that optimistic, modern, healthy spirit of the time. This was Pärnu at its absolute peak. But then, everything changed. World War II and the Soviet occupation brought a totally, jarringly different way of building. The focus shifted to these massive, uniform, concrete apartment blocks. They were built for speed and efficiency, not for character. They felt impersonal, and they completely ignored the city's unique history. This really makes the shift after Estonia regained independence in '91 even more amazing. It was a conscious decision to go back, to restore history, and to build on a more human scale. It was like reclaiming the city's soul. So that brings us to today. After all those centuries of dramatic change, how does modern Pärnu manage this incredibly rich and, let's face it, pretty complex architectural story? Well, the city's approach today is actually super thoughtful. First, they actively restore their historic treasures. Second, and this is huge, they fiercely protect that unique wooden architecture. And third, when new buildings do go up, the goal is to carefully and respectfully mix them with the old, instead of just overpowering the city's character. So what's the big takeaway from all of this? What makes Pärnu so special today is something called its human scale. The buildings aren't massive and imposing, the streets feel friendly, and the whole environment is just designed for relaxation, not for stress. From its fortress heart to its modern face, the city has learned that its greatest strength is in that welcoming, comfortable character. Pärnu's story is written right there in its stone, wood, and glass, and it shows how a city can change and adapt without ever losing its soul. It kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? What story are the buildings telling in the place you call home? Thanks for watching.